Hello and welcome to Software Testing from Scratch. My name is Richard Martin. This is Chapter 3, Approaches to Testing. We're going to cover 4 topics in this chapter: structured testing, scripted testing, exploratory testing, scenarios, checklists and charters. So, first of all we have functional testing, which is often known as WhiteBox, GlassBox or ClearBox testing. In structural testing, the testers are required to have the knowledge of the internal implementations of the code. They're required to have knowledge of how the software is actually implemented and how it works, as well as the design ideas behind it as well. During a structural test, the tester is purely concentrating on how the software does its job. For example, a structural technique wants to know how loops in the software are working, not just that they do work. Different test cases may be derived to exercise the loop once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times. This may be done regardless of the functionality of the software. Structural testing can be used at all levels of testing as well. Developers use structural testing in component testing and component integration testing as well, especially where there's a good tool for supporting code coverage. Structural testing is also used in system and acceptance testing as well, but the structures are slightly different in that. For example, the coverage of menu options or major business transactions could be the structural element in system or user acceptance testing as well. Now, in WhiteBox testing, ideally the tester will have some programming knowledge themselves. It doesn't have to be much, however, it would really help them if they could interpret functions and loops within code. If they can't do that, it's going to be pretty impossible for them to WhiteBox test or even create the test cases in the first place. So in scripted testing, it usually involves 2 roles: the test case designer and the tester. The test case designer would design the test cases. He would obviously be getting paid a lot more than the actual testers themselves. He would be highly skilled. He would have a lot more experience than the testers. You'll economize resources. New testers, even at a low skill, can start working pretty rapidly if they have got the pre-designed test cases to work with. Scripted testing also facilitates better planning as well, and predictability. If we've got ready test scenarios, you can estimate efforts on testing and execute the test more precisely in a more timely manner as well. It's more predictable. Now here we have an example of how a test case would work. You would have, in this particular order, the test would be written. Test 1 takes 10 minutes, test 2 will take 10 minutes, test 3 will take 15. After that, they have to be executed. And before that, you would probably find that there'd be an expected delivery date tagged along to that, which would give the testing team something to work towards. Now, on the contrary to that, we have exploratory testing. Exploratory testing doesn't divide activities by roles or time. The tester thinks up a test case himself and executes them once and according to the test results. He creates new test cases. It's obviously that such a tester must be a very experienced specialist. They must have good product knowledge. In the case of an exploratory style, planning is very difficult or almost impossible. There's no guarantee that the tester will execute all the needed tests and not forget anything. Exploratory testers often have complications with reports. I mean, how can a tester report what he's tested if he doesn't know how many tests are still going to be remaining in the system, for instance? Now, the advantages of that: each individual test suite can suit your own mind. You can change them as fast as you need to. An exploratory tester has a very interesting and creative task. He does a very different kind of work in the design and the executing phase than a more kind of scripted, test-driven tester. The tester created and executed almost simultaneously, so it lets testing get started and execute as many tests as possible, and hopefully uncover more bugs earlier as well. In my opinion, it's not correct to consider one test style better than the other. Each style can be suitable or not, dependent of goals, test organization, customer requirements, or for other reasons. Both forms of testing will suit different projects. Now here we have an example of an exploratory testing phase. You would have test case 1. It didn't take 10 minutes to write, it took 20 minutes to execute, because as soon as you realized there was something there to test, you tested it straight away. Test case 2, again, took 20 minutes. Test case 3 took 40 minutes. Now the delivery date is probably going to be written once the tester is happy that they've covered as many tests as they can think of. It leaves quite a hole for customers, to be honest, because if they don't know when their software is going to be delivered, it's going to make it very difficult for them to plan a timeline.